This would be more interesting if we had a fourth guy at the table and Mike Tomlin, because we're going to talk about the Steelers now. First time in 20 years that they're going forward without Mike Tomlin as the head coach. They were 10-7 last year. Plus 5,000 Super Bowl odds, 50-1, 10th best in the AFC. Wide open, half open, closed for the Pittsburgh Steelers under Mike McCarthy.
Closed. I just don't see this team having a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. I just think that's a stretch. I think Aaron Rodgers, was this first came about what you're saying is I think he's still playing at a good enough level to go out there and compete. I don't see this team in that division being able to outlast Baltimore, to handle what Cincinnati brings this year. I think they finished third in that division. I don't see it for them at that level. They have, T.J. Watt. Is he also now in that boat of he's still a good player, but not as great as he used to be? You got Cam Hayward. You have a lot of different pieces that are older players that are still competing, similar to Aaron Rodgers, that I don't know if we have that blend that you kind of see in Kansas City with some of the young players. I think that's the hard thing for them of having a chance to really compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, the tricky one for me is Mike did such a great job there for so long. And there's a culture that has existed in Pittsburgh for a long time since Chuck Noll showed up there. And somehow they've been able to carry that over. But Mike added so much to it. They were a really tough team to play against. I mean, you played against them a ton. And so can they maintain that spirit? Mike McCarthy is going to do it very differently. Yes. I think it's a great hire. Bring the Pittsburgh guy home, reunite him with the quarterback, all of that stuff. Mike McCarthy is going to do a great job there. I actually disagree with you on the division. Cleveland might surprise people. I don't think they're great. Cincinnati will get better on defense, but still I think there are real questions about that. And there's some questions in Baltimore just with John Harbaugh not being there. So I do think the window in the division is as open as it's been in recent years for me. All the questions that you raised are real. Quarterback is a hard position to play. When you're 42 years old, week after week after week, to play at the level you need to play at. So, again, you hear me say this a lot. If they can spread the burden around, not make it all about Aaron Rodgers every week, that's what gives them their chance. The biggest question for me is Mike McCarthy after Mike Tomlin. Can they maintain that same kind of edginess that Mike Tomlin always had in his teams? I think that will help them because it's going to be a gritty division, and they're going to need some grit as the season goes on.
Well, McCarthy comes out last week and says they're not going to tackle to the ground at training camp, and then after yesterday's first padded practice of training camp, Jalen Warren, who's been there 5 years, said it was the most tame, uneventful first padded practice he had ever experienced. They're setting up a very clear, bright line if they fail to why they failed. And those Pittsburgh folks are going to say, we weren't physical enough, you weren't tough enough on them in practice, and that's why we're 7-10. They didn't have a losing season one year. How hard is that in the NFL?
Hard.
When everybody's trying to win every game, everybody's knocking on the door, and to not have a losing season in 19 years, in a generation, Mike Tomlin did not have a losing season one time. That is amazing.
It's really hard. And people, in some ways they disparage that because they need to go further. How many teams would love to have the record that they've had over the last 20 years? Probably 28 or 29 other teams would love to do what they've done. Let's go back to the physical nature of practice. Mike McCarthy has been a very successful coach in the NFL for a long time in different places. He has a certain style. He clearly believes in the health of the player. We're not going to lose players on the practice field, all of that. Sean McVay probably has a similar philosophy. I personally feel like having harder practices, challenging guys physically and mentally in practice, making an intense environment, I think that helps you develop the calluses you need. That's how I grew up in football. But different guys have different philosophies on that. So let's just let the thing play out.
Yeah. And it's hard. I know even the year I retired and when Gerard Mayo took over in New England, every question that every player is going to get when a coach has been there for a long time is, hey, you were full pads today. Different? The same as Mike Tomlin practice? So they're going to have to deal with that. And I think the best thing they can do is when they get asked questions like that is just say, hey, we're here now under Mike McCarthy. when you start talking about what you did, I just think it creates more pressure for the coach that's not necessary. I agree with you. It's not a problem for Mike McCarthy. He's been a long-time head coach. He could care less probably about the comparison, but it's just going to be a natural thing for everyone in Pittsburgh to compare everything they do this year to the 19 seasons prior, which when you actually think, it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't, but it does. It does. It's going to matter to the fans if they realize the team isn't what it was under Mike Tomlin.
We were there. The fans were like, they wanted to change more than anything. Yeah. So if you do change and then the next head coach comes in and does the same exact things that the other coach did, they would be complaining about that. Right. So it's just, it's one of those situations when you replace someone who's had success and been somewhere for a long time, the results are what's going to matter more than anything.
That Packers game was jarring to see how many Packers fans were there.
Yep.
And they got louder and they got louder as that game went on, and it just felt flat. But still, 19 straight non-losing seasons is incredibly impressive.
But that's an old story in football. Mm-hmm. The Packers travel well. The Steelers travel well. The Steelers travel all over the country, and they have a similar feeling. So, you said it. It's going to matter how they do, the results, the record, and then the narrative will follow that.
Yep.
Are the Pittsburgh Steelers protecting their players, or are they slowly removing the physical edge that made this franchise feared? That question is already hanging over Mike McCarthy's first training camp, and believe me, if this team struggles early, people are going to point directly at these practices. No tackling to the ground, less violence between teammates, more attention to health, structure, and controlled work. Some fans hear that and immediately think, that is not Steelers football. I understand the reaction. Pittsburgh's culture was built around toughness. You earn every yard. You finish every block. You make opponents feel the game on Monday morning. Mike Tomlin carried that identity for 19 seasons without producing one losing record. So McCarthy is not replacing an ordinary coach. He is following a standard that became part of the organization's personality. But let's slow down before calling these Steelers soft. McCarthy is coached long enough to understand the difference between preparing a physical team and losing an important player because somebody wanted to win a training camp collision. He is betting that Pittsburgh can develop toughness through technique, intensity, and situational pressure without taking unnecessary bodies to the ground. That approach will either look smart or become the first thing critics attack. If the Steelers win, people will praise McCarthy for preserving Aaron Rodgers, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and the rest of an experienced roster. If they lose, every quiet practice will suddenly become evidence that Pittsburgh abandoned its culture. That is the pressure of this job. The national debate already says the Super Bowl window is closed. Rodgers is older. Hayward is deep into his career. Some analysts are even questioning whether Watt remains the same dominant force. Baltimore and Cincinnati are being placed ahead of Pittsburgh before McCarthy's team has played one meaningful snap. Come on, the Steelers should not ignore those concerns, but they should not accept that conclusion either. The AFC North is more open than people admit. Every team has questions. Pittsburgh does not need Rodgers throwing 50 times every Sunday. Spread the burden, run the football, protect him with a disciplined offensive line. Let the defense create field position. Make this a complete team instead of asking one 42-year-old quarterback to rescue every possession. That is where another conversation has started among fans. Kevin Zeitler. Let's be perfectly clear. There is no confirmed Steelers offer, visit, or negotiation. Zeitler is an available veteran guard, and connecting him to Pittsburgh is currently a market hypothesis, not verified team interest. Still, the idea makes sense as a discussion. Zeitler has extensive starting experience and could bring another veteran voice to an offensive line facing enormous responsibility. If Pittsburgh believes the interior needs stability, adding a proven guard could help protect Rodgers, strengthen the running game, and give younger linemen someone who understands how to survive an entire NFL season. Would that move guarantee anything? Absolutely not. But if the goal is a Super Bowl run, the Steelers must examine every reasonable way to reduce pressure on Rodgers. The offensive line cannot be average. It has to become one of the reasons this team wins. A veteran such as Zeitler could be insurance, competition, or short-term stability while the younger foundation develops. Again, that is speculation. The Steelers have not confirmed it. The bigger story remains McCarthy's culture. He cannot copy Tomlin. That would be fake, and the players would feel it immediately. McCarthy has to build practices his way while preserving the qualities Pittsburgh refuses to surrender: accountability, resilience, physical football, and the expectation that nobody enjoys playing against the Steelers. Physicality is not measured only by how many teammates hit the ground in August. It is measured on 3rd and 1 when everybody knows the run is coming. It is measured when the defense has been on the field for 10 plays and still finds a way to finish the drive. It is measured in December when the body hurts, the division is tight, and the season depends on one final possession. That is when we will learn whether McCarthy protected the Steelers' identity or changed it too much. For now, I see a coach trying to preserve an older championship core without abandoning the standard. I see a team that still has Watt and Hayward leading the defense, Rodgers reunited with McCarthy, and a possible opportunity to strengthen the offensive line before the season becomes real. The Super Bowl odds do not matter today. The arguments about Tomlin do not decide a game. Even the physical practice debate becomes noise once Pittsburgh starts winning. Results will control the narrative. Steelers Nation, do you support McCarthy's safer training camp approach, or do these players need harder practices to maintain Pittsburgh's edge? And should the Steelers explore Kevin Zeitler as veteran help for the offensive line? Drop your opinion in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe to Steelers Nation Wire. McCarthy is changing the method, but the mission must remain the same: play Steelers football and chase another Super Bowl.